And welcome, Hoosier Nation, to our 66th episode of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. Our mission and goal is simple. We want to bring in-depth analysis and coverage for Indiana University sports to as many fans as possible across a multitude of modern platforms. We are recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Tuesday evening, December 11th, where I am your host, Matthew Lukens, and joined with me tonight is Nithin Christian. Hi, Nithin.
Hey, Matt. How's it going? How's it going to you and everyone else watching and listening?
I know. It's going to be a fun episode tonight. He's one of our Indiana HQ contributors and is starting to become a regular here on the show. So get used to his lovely face. If you want to see us live and participate through the ongoing chat, catch us on Tuesday evenings at 8:30 p.m. on our YouTube page. And on our website. Can you tell I'm not good at reading off of scripts? Don't worry, we'll be back next week, and he can read all the scripts he wants. If you miss live broadcast, you can subscribe to our show for free on whatever platform you listen to podcasts, so you can listen on your own time. Check out our Twitter and Facebook at the Hoosier Sound and subscribe. All the information is on our website, thehoosiersound.com, as well as our partner, Indiana HQ, at indianahq.com. I highly recommend visiting them. All right, Hoosier Nation, it's time for some sports talk and to get me to stop reading off of scripts. So on the docket tonight, Nithin and I are going to briefly cover the Louisville game before we go into our player report cards for the year so far. It's finals week here at IU. I just had 2 finals today. I had 3 hours of sleep last night, but I aced both my finals. So we thought it'd be fitting to grade each player on how they've done this year. But first, we're going to start with my memorable monologue, and I'm going to start with, thank God that we have a break from basketball for like 5 days. The guys have earned it. They worked their tails off on Saturday to get a very well-deserved, hard-fought victory against Louisville at home. Of course, we won by 1 point. I'm going to count it as a 4-point victory. That last second half-court, I don't know. I don't know what it is about Assembly Hall and stupid three-pointers going in, but ever since the Watt shot, I feel like we've just been getting paid back by teams just hitting ridiculous three-pointers. Case in point, the Ohio State game last year, Indiana State, IPFW. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But anyways, it's some weird voodoo thing having to do with the Watt shot, which, by the way, its anniversary, 7-year anniversary, was yesterday. So, happy anniversary? ? But anyways, it's nice for the guys to get a break. Their next game is Saturday, so they get a nice 7-day week break. I don't know if you really can count it. I mean, I guess it's a physical break, but mentally, they're doing finals just like me. So I am sure that they're going to be happy come Saturday to play basketball again, and I'm sure they miss it. So we're going to be looking forward to them playing Butler on Saturday, right, Nithin?
Yeah, no, I mean, wow. You know, it's a bit of a break from basketball, but we've got a lot to talk about. We've got, like you said, the Louisville recap. We'll touch on that. We've got Butler coming up. They're going to be happy that they're playing basketball, but this matchup's not going to be easy. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And then we've got report cards to hand out and who knows what else. So I'm looking forward to it.
The Indiana HQ principals over here, teachers handing out report cards.
Oh man.
So with that, let's move to Louisville and let's hear your thoughts on Louisville. So,
yep.
The game as a whole.
I'm still winding down. I mean, it almost feels like the game ended 10 minutes ago.
Right.
But you know my thing, Matt. You know my thing from last week's podcast. A win is a win.
I will sing it to the choir.
Preach it to the choir. I mean, it doesn't matter that you won it by 1 or you won it by 30. At this point, the Hoosiers still aren't at full strength. Jawan Morgan's out there battling with the hampered leg. Certain guys didn't have their A game, but IU, who was down the entire game, it felt, took the lead with a few minutes to go on a Robert Finney 3, and it seems like it's kind of their trademark now. They're able to close out these tight games. Archie Miller mentioned they may have had some scars from that Arkansas game, but they may have learned a thing or two from that loss, and that is a good example of how a loss back in late November can help you for the rest of the season. And I think whether it's Penn State, Northwestern, Louisville, IU has showed that, they're able to toughen it out in these close games, execute at their best. And that was my main takeaway. This team may not blow teams out by 30 points, but in those close games, they make the plays to win. Is that how you see it?
Definitely is the way how I see it. And especially when we're talking about making plays to win, I don't think anybody on this team has done more to make plays to win in the clutch than Rob Finney. What a freshman he is. I mean, I'm sure if you listen to any other podcast, even the CBS sports guys were shouting him out, but he's been having one heck of a year. It's incredible to watch him play. 3 big threes, 2 big ones, especially down the stretch at the end there. Justin Smith had his best game in what seemed like forever for IU. He had 9 points and 9 rebounds, led the team in rebounds, and he had that one wonderful poster. He finally got a poster to go through the net. I mean, I feel like he's been trying for 2 years now to get a poster dunk, and he finally got it. Romeo had a great game. He was 6 of 11, shot more than 50% from the field. He was 0 of 3 from 3, but that's fine. 9 of 14 from the line. Had 21 points. Led all of IU's scorers, but didn't lead all scorers because I think Nwora on Louisville had 24 points. But he had, of course, just a Romeo game. He just does what Romeo does. Jawan was a beast. He didn't get in early foul trouble in a big game, which was wonderful to see. I think that might have hurt his defense slightly, just because he was playing a little bit timid through the first 5-10 minutes of the first half. But, it was nice to have him not worry about fouling down the stretch. Going down the list, Al Durham had a bit of an off game. He only played, I think, 8 minutes in the second half. He was, I don't have the stats in front of me, but he was 0 of 4 from the field, 0 of 3. He didn't score a point. He didn't get a rebound. He didn't get an assist. He had 1 steal though, so he didn't get the 22 trillion. So that's good. Good job, Al. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It was a good game from IU. It was closer than I would have liked, especially being at home. But like Nithin says, a win is a win, and
that's right.
We're 8.
No, absolutely, exactly, and 8-2 sounds awesome right now. I mean, it wasn't pretty, it wasn't perfect. They got the job done, but it's interesting. It's a testament to IU's depth. I mean, we've seen teams recently with IU as far as it goes, where it's run by Victor Oladipo and Cody Zeller, or it's run by Yogi Ferrell. And, if those
Yogi
guys
Ferrell
have
and Good Troy.
Yeah,
Yogi
right.
Ferrell and Good Troy. Yeah.
Add in Troy Williams in that mix is, on that 2015 tournament team, I think it was.
Yes.
But when those guys have an off night, or if they get into foul trouble, you're kind of toast. This version of the Hoosiers, if Al Durham struggles, or if a guy like Juwan Morgan picks up an injury down the stretch against Northwestern, they find a way. And I think that's a testament to Archie Miller and his coaching staff. They have emphasized recruiting a handful of solid, decent players, and they've developed them to the point where they're confident in their development. Now, I thought going back to last week's podcast, that Evan Fitzner was going to stand out in Saturday's game, and unfortunately, he didn't do well.
No, he did not.
But I wanted to give you credit, man. I don't know if you remember this, but last week at the tail end, and this is why you listen to the end of our podcast, when we predicted the Louisville game, you had mentioned that you thought Romeo Langford was going to score 20. Now he scored 21.
Yeah.
But I'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
Okay, thank you.
And then you said Juwan Morgan, I think you said he was going to score 14 or 15. And he scored 15. And you said IU's going to win by 5. And of course, like you said, if they didn't hit that half court shot at the end, it would have been a 4-point margin. So, maybe later on when we talk about the Butler game, I'll hear what you say and put some money down on that, because wow, you were spot on.
You know what? This happens to me every once in a while, and I go, you know what? I should start betting on sports. And then I realize how much of an emotional wreck I am during games that I watch and I'm not even a fan of. And then I'm like, I imagine myself putting money on the line. I'd be like, no, I couldn't do this.
No, the Indiana HQ and the Hoosier Sound do not advocate.
We do not if you advertise for illegal activities, even though it's going to be legal soon. But we do not, until it is legal, we do not advertise for illegal activities.
Just hypothetically speaking.
You were talking about the coaching staff, and it's funny because Indiana HQ tweeted about this. Jordan Sperber, if you don't know who he is, go check out his Twitter account. We tweeted about this earlier. I had to go dig through our Slack group chat to find this. But he tweeted out something about, I think it was, according to Ken Palm, coaches with more than 50 close games, which close games were denoted as within 5 points or not, coaches and their winning percentage. And there's like a whole, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a whole graph and all the coaches are spread out over the graph. And the bottom of the graph, the x-axis is number of games, and the y-axis is the winning percentage. I think I did that right. I think I passed math once. And Archie Miller is one of the top 14 coaches in the country for winning percentage. He has an above 60% winning percentage when it comes to games within 5 points, which means to me, Archie is the perfect coach for IU, especially when we come to the tournament. And I think that is why he got to the Elite Eight with Dayton, is because he thrives in in-game coaching and late-game decision-making.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, some of those Dayton teams, they were playing in those close games against Ohio State, and they were able to win. I mean, I'm just thinking back to the end of last year. IU was able to knock off a team like Maryland and Bloomington in a close game. They were able to knock off, I think, Penn State. It was a close game.
Yep.
They ran into some bad luck in Bloomington against Ohio State in a game you referenced earlier.
Where that's
CJ Jackson.
Happen.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned, because that was a shot that came to my mind. But it was funny. Are we concerned on anything that comes across your mind? One thing that bothered me was, once again, it seemed like sort of a big man really hurt IU inside. Jordan Nwora went crazy on Saturday with 24 and 14.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say he hurt us on the inside, because he was 4 of 8 from 3. He shot 50% from 3. That's 12 points of his 24 from outside. Other than going 4 of 8 from 3, he was 8 of 17 from the field. So it wasn't like he was automatic on the inside. And their other forward, Sutton, was 3 of 9. And their center was 3 of 3 from the field, but he only took 3 shots. So I don't see it as a problem as another big man gave us a problem. He's like a tall guard, basically, Nor. He's like a beefier Evan Fitzner, who just decided to show up against us this game, and Evan did not. So.
Yeah, well, but it's okay though, because this version of IU seems to be a team where a couple guys can struggle, but they still find a way to scratch it out. Freshman of the week, Romeo Langford. I mean, you said he was 0 for 3 beyond the arc, but he seems to keep getting better as the season goes on. Do you see it that way?
Definitely. I think that's a pretty obvious observation, just because they are freshmen. Like, as long as you get used to the game, what has impressed me more is Romeo's shooting. Yeah, he went 0 of 3 from three, but a couple, especially early in the game, to keep us in the game, he hit a couple very tough step back jumpers over some very lengthy defenders. Is what is very much an NBA shot, I might add. And an NBA shot creation at its finest. And so he's definitely, I think he's feeling more comfortable. There's certain times on defense where to me he still looks lost. But like
that's what I wanted to address actually,
yeah,
because you are right. Overall, he is obviously going almost naturally going to get better since this is his first run through at the college level.
right.
But I was really more focusing on the defense, and I really should have emphasized that part of the game. In fact, Archie even said earlier this week that Langford has steadily improved defensively since October and November. So, you were talking about how guys like Jordan Nwora weren't really damaging the Hoosiers inside. One of the guys we had highlighted on our podcast last week was Ryan McMahon, and he was someone who lit up Michigan State for 24 points. McMahon was generally invisible in this game. He had a couple shots, but I'm looking at a guy like Romeo Langford, the freshman tandem of Langford and Finney also, as a couple guys who did a good job on the perimeter, and you're going to need that on Saturday against Kamar Baldwin on Butler.
Absolutely. All right. So with that, we're going to transition. As I mentioned before, we're going to grade each player on how they've played so far this season. And it's good that we're just talking about Romeo and his defense because this is a great segue. We're going to go into jersey number by order and also factor in injuries, leadership, and experience. So starting with Mr. Zero himself, who we were just talking about. Let's talk about Romeo Langford. So I'm going to start, and I'll start offensively. Like I said previously, he's getting more comfortable. I think some people he came in, his free throw shooting was off. He was taking, I wouldn't say bad shots because they were at the end of the shot clock, but he was taking very tough shots. And people were like, is he going to fit into Archie's offensive system? His hype man, Frankie Vision, was mouthing off on Twitter about Archie doesn't run the offense through Romeo, and he still is. But that's a whole other 2-hour podcast. But anyways, offensively, I feel like he's fit into the offense very well. There are times where I feel like he's on the court, and so therefore he is a presence, but he's not actually a presence within the offense because he's not really touching the ball as much as he should. But first and foremost, the offense on this team runs through and only through Juwan Morgan because he is our best player. And then if it has to run through anybody else, it's going to be Rob Finney second and then Romeo third. And Romeo is going to have to be that third option as the ball handler. That doesn't mean that he isn't the primary point of emphasis on offense. It means that he's not the one creating it. He's the one who's going to get the dish, who then, whether on a cut or on a beeline out from the paint, is going to catch it and turn around and shoot it. Like Romeo is a very good shot creator. The problem with Romeo is that he is bound to freshman mistakes on the offensive end, and that's fine because he's a freshman, and I'm not painting him as the next messiah, and he's never supposed to turn over the ball, and he's never supposed to miss a three, and oh my God, he dribbled it off his foot once. He's going to be a second round pick at best. No. He's going to make a dumb pass here or there. He's going to lazily toss the ball with one hand across the three-point line to the other side to somebody who's not even there. Because if you're giving a freshman who's been used to having it easy or easier, because he's not playing defenders that are 6'7" and have a 7-foot wingspan like he does, He's going to make passes like that because that's what he's been doing his whole life. But as as we've gone on this season, I have seen him do that less and less. This past game, this Louisville game, we'll go back to the Louisville game. We're talking about it a lot. Romeo had 4 assists and 1 turnover. And the best pass of the game came from Romeo. He had that assist to Juwan Morgan at the end to put it to I think it was a 4-point lead at that point. Put it to a 4-point lead. Juwan got an easy bucket. He's going to make the right play, but you also can't expect him to make the right play every single time because he is a freshman, and this is what freshmen do. You can go back and you can look at any 5-star freshman that has existed for the eternity of time. You can go back and we'll go look at somebody who was a Rookie of the Year candidate last year. You can look at Jason Tatum and his time at Duke. And if you go back and you look at Jason Tatum and his time at Duke, you go, that guy's going to be like the 5th pick. And then he's in the running for Rookie of the Year. Sure, he's having a slight bit of a sophomore slump this year, but that's fine. He's a fantastic player, and he probably should have been the number 1 pick over Markelle Fultz. If you look back and you redraft the draft, he probably should have been. But when you go and look at his highlights at Duke, he makes some errant passes. He takes some dumb shots. Like, it's going to happen. They are freshmen. They are not perfect. It's just they're coming from high school ball, especially Romeo didn't play at La Lumiere. He didn't play at, whatever the academy is.
All the Brewsters and all those things. Oak Hill.
He didn't play at an academy that plays against other academies. He didn't play at IMG, and you don't play the best high schools. He played Indiana high school basketball, which, as far as public high school basketball goes, is great. But it's not on the level of college basketball at all. And he played AAU ball, and sure, that's close, but he had played AAU ball for an entire year, and now you throw him into college basketball and expect him not to make an errant pass. So, as far as offense for Romeo, I think he's done excellent. You want to talk about Romeo's defense real fast?
Yeah, I mean the defense. As Archie said, I mean, why bother what my opinion is? The head coach of the basketball thinks head coach of the basketball team thinks it's gotten better since October and November, and we're seeing him a little bit more and more here assume the role of primary defender against the opposing team's best wing player. I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to do on Saturday against either Kamar Baldwin or Paul Jorgensen, but we'll get into Butler a little bit later. It's trending upwards, and I like what I'm seeing. And then one note on his offense, and this really is an offense. It's more of an internal thing, sort of toughness, resilience. Yeah. How about how he missed 2 free throws down the stretch against Louisville, and then hit 2 that proved to kind of be the ultimate difference in the game, given that Louisville hit that 3-point shot from half court. So, the one thing about Langford that sort of caught my attention his senior year in high school was how he was always in the moment. He never really, guys like Greg Doyle with the Indy Star had articles seemingly every week that said how he's not really, awestruck by all the hype that he gets. And you're kind of seeing a little bit of that with IU. He's a very, mellow, down, seemingly easy to coach, easy to get along with player, and that's all you can really ask for. A lot of times these these highly hyped high schoolers don't necessarily pan out at the college level. Langford's doing it on the court, and he seems to be getting better by the day. As far as the grade goes overall, I'd give him an A minus so far. What would you say?
Yeah, I think an A is due for him. I think on offense, for me, we're going to do offense, defense, and overall. So offensively, I'll give him an A, and defensively, I give him an A minus. I think he's one of our better perimeter defenders, but at times he has lapses. But he's a freshman, so I'm going to grade him on a slight bit of a scale. But I think overall he's an A. I'm going to get rounds up. That's how I'm going to do it.
All right. Well, yeah. So for me, I guess offense, I give him an A. Defense, I give him, I guess, a B plus over, from day one to now on defense. He did struggle a little bit earlier in the season. So then, on average, I'll give him the A-, but he's been all you could ask for so far.
Absolutely, he's a star, folks. All right, so let's move on. Move on to our boy Al Durham. Of course, I'm not going to let the performance and last Saturday's game persuade me. I think he's been our most consistent shooter this year. I think he's made bounds and leaps on offense over what he's done in the past year. God, he's a sophomore. Past couple of years. I feel like he's been here for years, but
yeah, right.
Yeah, the past year on offense last year, he went through some ebbs and flows and whatnot. But I feel like, and I think all of Hoosier Nation will really agree with me that he has blossomed as an offensive player this year. He's definitely got an inside-outside game. He's going to be able to bring it to the hoop, but also shoot the three at a much better rate than last year. And I have confidence every time he shoots it, even after last Saturday's performance. And then, of course, we know what he brings defensively: his length, his tenacity. A couple games this year, he's gotten some foul trouble. I don't know. We'll see if that trend continues. But I'm going to give my grades first, then you can talk about it. So I'm going to give him an A- on offense. I still think he could try to get to the rim more because he's so good in and around the basket. And then I think on defense, I'm going to give him also an A-. So an A- for the year for Al.
I think you hit on his strengths and weaknesses pretty well. Do you know even after that 0 for 3 against Louisville from beyond the arc, he's still 12 for 28 from 3-point land this season. That's 43%. I mean, this is a guy who was not expected to be a major perimeter source this season.
Nope.
And you talk about improving during the offseason. That's exactly what Al Durham has done. He's dependable at the free throw line. He turns it over still a little bit for my liking. As you mentioned, the foul trouble is there every so often. So, but I'll tell you one thing. His performance against Marquette really stood out to me. So I'm going to, for that reason, give him a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt. Offensively, I'm going to give him an A-, but defensively, I'm going to give him an A. I understand the foul trouble is there, but I really liked what he did against Marcus Howard, even though it might be one game. They've only played 10 so far, so I'm going to give him the credit for that. So overall, I'm going to give Al Durham an A just based on those expectations and the improvement that he made from last year.
That's fair. I agree. All right, let's move on. Our third player is going to be Justin Smith. So you want to take this one, Justin Smith?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was the Justin Smith defender last week. So, offensively, though, since we do have to evaluate that aspect of his game, he has regressed. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I'm just going to put a little bit less weight on his offense. So rather than saying 50% offense, 50% defense, I'm going to weight his defensive component a little bit more. But unfortunately, I mean, he has taken a step back. He was a 55% shooter last year. It's gone down to 49. He was a 67% free throw shooter last year. It's gone down to 62. It's a little bit frustrating.
Ooh, it looks like we just lost Nithin. Oh boy. All right, so hopefully he rejoins. But anyways, he was talking about Justin Smith.
Yeah, sorry about that. Just had a technical thing there.
Hey, it's fine. I was stalling.
No, good. Yeah, hopefully the stand-up wasn't too bad.
No, I don't think so.
So the field goal shooting, like I said, went down. The free throw shooting's gone down. So it's been frustrating on offense. But I do like the defense. I do like the rebounding. So offense, I'm going to actually knock him down quite a bit. I think he's been a C player on offense this year. But I like what I've seen on the defensive side. And I do want to weight that more. So I'll give him an A. on defense and a B plus overall.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is quite a discrepancy.
Hey, look, you don't have to agree, Matt.
I'm just saying the C to the A to the B plus is quite the discrepancy. But anyways, it's fine because I'm gonna give my explanation now.
Okay. All right.
So on offense, I'm gonna give him a B minus, and here's why. Because I don't think he's been given the opportunity to shoot the three much this year, but in the opportunities that he has had, he has looked somewhat competent in shooting the three. So I don't know why we don't have him rim running from the 3-point line to the rim and not having him sit on the block. I know that's supposed to be a strength of his, but it opens up more opportunities for him to get the ball. And he is also a very good distributor of the ball when he's moving with it. Now, if he's stationary with the ball, there is no one else on this team I want with the ball less than Justin Smith. But if he's moving with the ball, there are quite a few people more that I would like the ball than Justin Smith. But Justin Smith is not near the bottom of the list, so he's fine. Near the bottom of the list would be Evan Fitzner. If Evan Fitzner dribbles the ball up the court again, I'm going to have a capitulation fit. Anyways, that's besides the point. So on offense, I don't think we've been giving him the opportunity to really express himself on offense as much as he could. I think he's improved this year. Sure, his shooting percentages has regressed, but I think they'll go back up. I think he's just had a rough time and a rough patch. So B minus on offense, and I'm going to give him a B on defense because I think he has some mental lapses on defense. And sure, he's a really good perimeter defender most of the time, but there is just some boneheaded fouls that he does on a wide open man who's just going to make the layup. Let him make the layup, Justin. Just let the big guy make the layup. Don't try and go and contest a shot that you're going to foul him. He goes up, he fouls him, the guy makes the layup, and it's an and one instead of what it would have been a layup, and he's not in foul trouble now. So on multiple occasions, he's done that, and that has hit a funny bone in me. So that's a B for him on defense, and so in total, he gets a B. There you go. That's Justin Smith. All right, moving on from Justin Smith, we're going to go to the golden boy, Rob Finney, who I am sure is doing a lot more than what we expected preseason. So, Nithin, let's do Rob Finney. What are your thoughts on Rob's offense?
On offense, I love what I'm.
Rob Finney. That should just be the headline right there, folks. I'm great at English language.
I love what I'm seeing. First of all, how happy are you that that Archie Miller went into Matt Painter's backyard and found Finney, huh?
Oh man, that makes it even that much better, right? Because Rob Finney, he's great. He's a kid from Indiana. He's awesome. He's having a fantastic year, and he looks like the point guard of the future for this program. And then he came from West Lafayette, and we stole him from Purdue.
I mean, how does that happen? Now, technically, I mean, people can correct me in the chat or on Twitter if I'm wrong, but I believe he's from Lafayette. I think Lafayette and West Lafayette.
He's from Lafayette, but
are slightly different. But all right, okay, cool. But yeah,
I also don't think he was considering Purdue. Or if he
I don't know, man.
We're gonna cover our tracks so some angry Purdue fans will come at us on Twitter.
No, I embrace the haters. Bring the hate. Bring the hate.
Bring the hate.
So Finney, right? Offensively, to me, it's a combination of a guy who's being productive without question, but he's also a guy who's delivered at, in big moments. I remember big plays he made against Northwestern after Juwan Morgan went out, big couple threes against Louisville down the stretch. I mean, this is a guy who has, at least to me, and Archie can call in if he thinks I'm wrong, but he seems to have earned Archie Miller's trust as the point guard of this team. And, offensively, I'd like the free throw shooting to be a little bit better, so it won't be an A plus. So I'll give him an A, both based on production and timing. Defensively, I don't know what more you can ask. I mean, he's a 18. He's a true freshman. Often he's 19. Often guarding the other team's point guard.
Right.
And in the Big Ten, we've had a couple games already, and in the non-conference season where we've played Duke, Marquette, and Louisville, he's embraced that challenge and he's been pretty good at it. So A on offense, A on defense, A overall. I'm looking forward to seeing him the rest of the season.
Definitely looking forward to seeing the rest of the season. All right, I'm gonna do mine real quick. I think it's pretty simple for me. I think he stepped into the starting role as a point guard on offense admirably, if not amazingly. And so, for me, expecting Devontae Green to be the absolute starter on this team, and from the beginning of the summer last year until probably a month and a half ago, and to now me being like, does Devontae even have a place in this team? Um, an A plus on offense, and then A plus on defense, because this is nothing that I expected. This is not even close to what I expected from him. I expect him to have some freshman mistakes. I expect him to come in and play some good minutes as a backup, but not as a starter. So overall, A plus for me. I don't think that I'll give an A plus to another player on this list, but A plus for Rob Finney from me. So let's move on to the guy I just mentioned, Devon.
Yeah, I was gonna say was that intentional?
It was absolutely not intentional at all. I am not that smooth. Anyways, Devontae Green, I'll start. I think on offense, I think because of the injury, he's been a little bit iffy. His 3-point shooting percentage, I'm pretty sure, has gone down. His free throw shooting percentage is fine. Actually, he's probably the best free throw shooter on the team. He's the guy, if he goes up and shoots free throws, I'm like, yes, thank you. Because I know at least one of the two free throws is going to go in. So I'm going to give him, because of the injury, I think it's unfair to give him a C minus. So I'm going to give him a C plus on offense. And then on defense, he's going to get a bad grade because if I'm going to be honest, I feel like a lot of the defensive lapses on rotations this year have been caused or have involved Devontae in some sort of way in the games that he's played. I think he's still getting used to not playing that point guard position and playing that two guard position as a backup, especially since Rob Finney has stepped in so well. So I'm going to give him a C minus on defense. And so I think that's going to bring my total to a C in total for Devontae Green for me.
Yeah, I don't know how this is all going to play out, but I'm going to be hard pressed to find someone else who I've been less impressed with this season. I think at the beginning you had mentioned that the criteria we're focusing on is our experience, improvement, and performance compared to expectations. And at least I was expecting Devontae Green as well to be a more significant contributor on this team when he was healthy. I mean, even it's not like he's been injured every game this year.
Right.
It's been disappointing, and it's unrealistic to expect every guy to step it up after last season. But I think this is this is one of the guys who's regressed really on each side of the basketball. For some, the turnovers have gone up. The shooting has gotten worse. He's shooting 23% beyond the arc this year. I mean, 4 for 17, and maybe the thigh injury plays a role in that. But look, there's a lot of basketball left. But to this point, I'm gonna have to say it's a C on offense, a C minus on offense, a C on defense, and I'll knock the defense up a little. Hey, we'll give him a B minus on defense and a C plus overall. C plus overall. I do think he's put in the effort on defense, and that's where the eye test comes in. He has put in the effort, even though he's gotten beat a few times. So I'll give him the B minus on defense, but the C plus overall.
All right, that's fair. All right, we'll get out of the C's for a second. We'll move on up to the B's and the A's. So our next player is Juwan Morgan. All right, Nithin, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, I mean, look, here, this is an example of a guy who doesn't seem to be using the injuries as an excuse. And I'm not saying Devontae Green is, but, Juwan Morgan's been banged up, and he's still been able to contribute in a variety of ways to this team. It's funny, like, this is a guy who, he could have gone to the NBA. You know, he could have gone to the NBA after last year, but he said he wanted to come back for senior year, and it's been so far so good. He's shooting 65% from the field. He's taking his shots. He's passing out of double teams. He's Indiana's best rebounder. I've a hard time remembering a guy who's improved as a rebounder so much at IU. It's fun.
Right.
You know, a lot of guys come in and they're naturally gifted. A guy like Noah Vonleh, you know, kind of reminds me of that. You know, there are other guys like Cody Zeller who fit that mold as well. But you know, Juwan Morgan was a guy who early in his career was banged around with a bunch of shoulder injuries, and you know, he could have very easily decided to just shoot 3-pointers and make that a part of his game. But instead, he's gotten tougher. He's been a better rebounder. I really don't have many complaints about Juwan offensively. To me, he is an A on offense. The free throw shooting is still a concern there. On defense, his post defense has been a question mark this year. We'll see if that gets better. To me, that's going to be a B on defense, but overall, I'm going to weight his offense a little bit more. I think Indiana needs Juwan Morgan to be more of an offensive player, so I'll give him an A- overall.
Yeah. All right. That sounds good. So for me, I think on offense, I'm gonna give him a B plus, and here's why. I think, and the only reason why I'm gonna give him a B plus is his free throw shooting. I think his free throw shooting, especially as a senior leader, should definitely have improved. Has not improved as much as I was hoping it would. And so for that reason and that reason alone, he's getting a B plus on offense. Even though if the free throws weren't an issue, he'd be getting an A, but a B plus on offense.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
And then on defense, I'm also gonna give him a B plus because I feel like he has hurt us in games, especially the Arkansas game, by getting in foul trouble early. As a senior leader, you have to know better than to reach in on stupid fouls or get into foul trouble early. I don't care if it leads to an early basket. You know, that's fine. We can make those 2 points up if you're on the floor. It's going to be harder to make those 2 points up if you're not playing. So as a senior leader, he's going to need to know at the beginning of the game, he can't pick up 2 fouls in the first 3 minutes. Like it just can't happen. If you pick up 2 fouls in the first half, fine. If you pick up your second foul with 4 minutes left in the first half, that's okay. But it can't happen in the first 3 minutes. It's unacceptable. Like as a senior leader, that should not happen. So it's a B plus in total for me for Juwan Morgan.
Just to jump in on that
Sure.
last part though, I do think he's gotten a tough whistle this year. I feel like offensively he gets hit hard, at least harder than most inside, you know, stars get hit, or at least all Big Ten guys get hit. I don't think he gets the calls as much as other guys do. And on defense, I feel for whatever reason, maybe he's just gotten some bad luck or whatever, but I feel like he's gotten really the lion's share of ticky-tack fouls on defense. So hopefully that is something that evens out here as we head into the thick of the season.
Yes. All right, I agree with you. All right, next up, Zach McRoberts. I'll go first on this one.
Okay.
I think Zach offensively has had an interesting year. I think he shot out of the gate looking very impressive, like very much improved. He looked confident, a lot more confident. He looked like he knew what he was doing on offense, and he was passing the ball very well. And since he's come back from injury, he's looked a little bit lackadaisical on offense. He looked like he hasn't really gotten back into the flow of the offense. And so for that reason, I'm going to give him a B on offense. So if he had stayed like he had in the first couple games he had played, especially through the Marquette game, I might have given him an A. But since he's come back, he's regressed significantly to the point where he didn't even take a shot last game. So I'm going to give him a B. Even though he had an open shot to take, he didn't take it. So B for me. On defense, though, that's his bread and butter. I'm going to give him an A minus. Of course, I feel like he still hasn't gotten back in the flow of the defense as he's come back. A couple of his rotations have been slightly slow, but he still plays fantastic defense. He can test the ball very well, and he's a very scrappy rebounder. So for me, I think he gets a B plus for the year so far, with obvious room to improve.
Yeah, this to me is an incomplete. I mean, we've really seen like almost nothing out of McRoberts. He hasn't played 100 minutes this year. He's been banged up. He's taken 5 shots all season. He hasn't taken a free throw. I mean, you know, I do agree with you that everything seems a little bit out of sync after his injury. You know, I kind of agree I kind of agree with you on defense. A minus there. I haven't seen enough on offense. So to me, look, he's the kid that hasn't he hasn't shown up for class that much. He's been out with illness or injury in this case. So I'm gonna give him an incomplete on offense. I'll give him an A minus on defense, but I'll give him an A plus in diving. I don't know if you saw that play he made against Northwestern last week. Yeah, last week. Yeah, about a week and a half ago. His huge play to save the ball from going out of bounds and batting it to Romeo, and Langford hit a big three after that. But so A plus in diving. Overall, I'll give him an A minus. I mean, Zach McRoberts is going to be very important coming up here in the next few months.
I agree. So we're going to move on to Deron Davis. You want to take this first?
Yeah. Deron Davis and Devontae Green seem to be kind of going in opposite directions, if you ask me. It's funny, like, I think with Jawan Morgan coming back, a lot of us were thinking, well, maybe Deron Davis will kind of maybe see less playing time for a guy who's going into his 3rd season. Instead, all I've seen is a guy who keeps looking better as he plays. The field goal percentage keeps going up. The defense is getting better. As far as comparing him to the sort of baseline expectation, to me on offense, he really hasn't given me any reason to be annoyed or anything. I give him an A minus on defense. He knows his role. He hits shots inside. He hits 2/3 of his shots. He's improving at the free throw line. So I'm going to give him an A minus on offense. Defensively, not perfect. Foul trouble is a problem still. But when he's on the court, I mean, look, in that game against either Northwestern or Penn State, Archie Miller said afterwards he regrets not playing Deron Davis more. That's all I need to hear. I'll give him an A minus on defense. Overall, give him an A minus.
Yeah, I definitely think Deron has been one of the bright spots on this team. And to be honest, I think all the points you made were fantastic. But honestly, I've been more blown away than you have been with him, because I'm going to give him an A plus on everything. Because here's why. Going into the season, I didn't expect him to play until December, and he's playing meaningful minutes against Louisville and meaningful minutes against Arkansas, and kept us in the game pretty much in Arkansas. He's improved from the field. He's a fantastic. Of course, he's always been fantastic in and around the rim, but he's definitely improved his finishing in that aspect. I think the only thing holding him back is his free throws. But as a big man, I'm not going to hold that against him, because he's a big guy. And big guys don't shoot free throws very well for whatever reason that happens to be. But they just historically do not shoot free throws.
I wish he had made that. I wish he had made that tip in against Arkansas. That would have given him an A plus 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 in my book.
Yes, but anyway, for me, he gets an A plus everything for me, because I expect him to have him in the rotation at all, and here he is playing meaningful minutes and playing well. So, for me.
Right.
Let's move on to Clifton Moore ? Yes, Noah. Clifton Moore ? So Clifton Moore. I'll take this one first. He's gonna get an incomplete for me.
Yeah.
Across the board. I think I've seen enough from him in the minutes I did see. Like a solid B, but I didn't get to see enough to really uphold my decision on that grade. So I think he's got some more homework assignments to do.
Yeah, right. No, or the teacher maybe needs to give him more assignments
Yes.
right now we saw the glimmer, we saw the glimpse against Penn State, but nothing against Louisville, and why not? So we'll have a more thorough grade on Clifton Moore at the end of the season. So I'm
Absolutely.
incomplete across the board, but I liked what I saw against Penn State.
All right, let's move on to Demezi, a person who hasn't played much in recent games. So what are you gonna give Demezi?
Yeah, the funny thing is, Demezy's played more basketball this year than Zach McRoberts. I mean, it's kind of
Yeah.
weird when you think of it that way, but overall, offensively, to me, he's been kind of a B minus player so far based on expectations. I was expecting him to almost play a Matt Roth like role on this team.
Wow,
For those of you that
that's
have followed
a
IU basketball in the last 10 years or so. I was expecting him to come off the come off the bench, maybe help stretch the floor, hit a few big threes, take a handful of threes per game. It just hasn't seemed to work out for Demezy Anderson, and it's a little bit frustrating because we have seen the injuries to guys like Devontae Green and Zach McRoberts, and the minutes have gone down as the years gone on. So I'll give him a B minus for offense. A B minus for defense, and that'll be his overall grade.
B minus. All
Yeah.
right, I do the same thing I did with Duran. I did not expect him to be playing, and yes, that's due to injuries and Jerome Hunter not being able to play, and Race Thompson coming back from an injury and then immediately getting a concussion. I understand this, but I did not expect him to be playing at all. In fact, I think we talked about him maybe even getting a red shirt this year because we expect him to see the court at all. And so the fact that he's even seen the court and he looked pretty productive in a couple games, I'm gonna give him a B plus. I'm gonna cut him some slack. He's a freshman.
Okay.
So like an A minus on offense and a B minus, a B minus range for defense. Of course, he can get better, but he even told us that he wasn't good with that at the start of the year. He's not very good at it, but he's trying his hardest, trying his damnedest. So B plus for me for Demezi. All right, let's move on to Evan Fitzner. Now, I'll start with Evan.
All right. I'm curious what you have to say on this one.
All right. So Evan came in, and everybody I think thought he was going to be the next Max BFO because he's a big guy that could shoot threes, and he's just there, and he comes from a winning program, and everybody's like, oh my god, he's going to be able to play in every single game and hit a couple threes, and it's going to be great. No, he is a two guard that happens to be 6'10". Okay, like he is a Channing Frye. You're not going to put Channing Frye in the post in the NBA. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to work out well. What you're going to do is you're going to sit him out on the outside, make him shoot threes, and that's what Evan's done pretty well, especially during the Marquette game. He was fantastic in the Marquette game. And that was by far IU's best overall game this year, and we're about to talk about that, I am sure. But Evan, on offense, I'm gonna give a B plus. I think there's been a couple games where he has been disappeared, and there's other games where he's literally been one of the best players on offense. So it's just really a matchup dependent thing. And the same thing with defense. Same thing with defense. There are times in which he looks fine on defense. He does the rotations well. He even contests shots at the rim perfectly fine. And there's other times when we play Duke that he's in over his head completely and just blows rotations, and the players are way too fast and way too physical for him because he's a two guard that's 6'10" in an awkward body. He's not going to be the world's best defender. So for defending, I'll give him a B minus. So B plus on offense, B minus in defending. He gets a B for the year. I don't think I was expecting anything more. I don't think I was expecting anything less going in this year.
No, that's fair. I'm going to bump up the offense just a little bit. I do care about what you do in big games. And, in college basketball, you get a select few out of your entire schedule, especially in non-conference, that make a big deal. So even though it was just one game, his performance against Marquette was a big deal. And he still is a 45% shooter from beyond the arc. He's 9 for 20. So I'm going to give him the A- on offense. I'll stick with your B- on defense. He does avoid foul trouble better than guys his size. So maybe something he can learn is, look, maybe it's a matter of taking an extra foul or two per game rather than getting beat in the half court. So I'll give him an A- on offense, and bump up his overall grade to a B+. I care about his shooting more than anything.
Yes, I agree. All right, let's move on to Archie, the coach. So, yeah, Archie, I'm going to give, and we're just going to give just a grade for Archie.
Okay, yeah, totally.
Just a grade. I'm going to give him an A. I think he's been great. I think we've been in a couple of very close games. I think the last 3 of our games have been within 2 points at the end, and we've won all 3. And the first time IU has done so since the 90s. So, and sure, the Duke loss was bad, and he blames it on himself. But Duke is also basically an NBA team, so I am not going to blame him on that. And he took he took an entire freshman backcourt and brought them to Duke, and they didn't look good. But that's not surprising because if you take a freshman backcourt to Duke, ask John Calipari what a freshman backcourt happened. Well, how that happened to him, and they lost by more than we did. So we're better than Kentucky, folks. So I'll give him an A. I think he's done an admirable job, especially with injuries and whatnot that we've had to overcome. And I'm going to talk more about the team and what I predicted earlier this year in a second. We're about to grade the team, but I think Archie as a whole has done a fantastic job.
Yeah, so when he was hired before last year, I wasn't like this Archie, believer. I didn't think he was this be all end all cure that I feel like everyone thought he would be. I think the narrative kind of was, well, he found a way to do it at Dayton. So I think he's just going to come in here and it might take a year or two, but he's going to have this thing running. And I watched IU last year and I was kind of underwhelmed. This year, I've been thoroughly impressed. I'm going to give him an A as well. The record speaks for itself, 8-2. A handful of solid non-conference wins, and he's done it on the recruiting trail as well. So overall, I've got him as an A. Bringing in Trace Jackson Davis for next year, I love what I'm seeing. Hopefully, this type of play continues as the year goes on.
I forgot about Trace. Crap. Might have given him an A+. No, I'm just kidding. He's gonna stay at an A though.
If they beat Arkansas, I would have given him an A+, but they fell short in that one.
Yeah, no. So he gets an A for me. I think we should move on to the team. So I'll let you take this first. What's your grade for the team so far this year?
Oh man, this year, I'm going to give him an A. I'll be honest with you, and I know people might say, "Well, you're being a homer, whatever." I mean, look, this is a team that they're not. I'm not giving you an A+. This isn't 100. They're not getting 100%. They'll, they've been banged up all year, and all they've shown is toughness, and it seems like it's a couple different guys each game. They've knocked off Marquette. They've knocked off Louisville. It is they're 2-0 in Big Ten play. Northwestern and Penn State. They won a game at Penn State where they were an underdog. So all in all, 8 and I like where they are right now. I'll give them an A. Hopefully, I give them an A at the end of the season.
So yeah, me too. I predict them to be 9-1 at this time. I did predict the loss to Duke. I don't want to rub it in, but I did predict the loss to Duke. Especially going to Cameron. Like, I thought we would win that Arkansas game, but a 1-point loss on a BS call and a missed tip-in. We were a missed tip-in away from being what I thought we would be. So for me, they get an A-, and I would have given them a B+ if it hadn't been for other players who I didn't think were going to be as good this year, who are stepping up and making drastic improvements, or have looked way better than I ever thought they would be as freshmen. And so that those people I'm talking about are obviously Rob Finney, but Al Durham as well. Demezy Anderson coming in and stepping in. We haven't seen Jerome Hunter yet. We haven't seen Race Thompson yet. And I'm going to mention that in a Twitter question that we got here in a minute. But I think with the injuries that we've dealt with and people stepping up into their roles, I think this team gets an A- from me with obvious room to improve, hopefully to an A+ by the end of the season, not just an A. So that's about going to wrap it up for our grading. But let's move on to some questions of yours. So first off, Trevor from Twitter. Shout out Trevor from Twitter. What's the best and worst case scenario for both IU basketball and Purdue this year, Nithin?
Whoa, okay. IU and Purdue. I thought you were just gonna say IU. So, all right. As far as IU goes, best case scenario, guys like Jerome Hunter and Race Thompson come back halfway through the season or 2/3 of the way through the season and make a big difference. We love what Robert Finney's been so far. Jerome Hunter was a higher ranked freshman than Robert Finney, and imagine who knows what contributions he can make. So those guys come back. IU continues ascending. They keep winning these close games, and with a few, they might have a few losses here and there, but they make the tournament. They get on a run. Romeo Langford and Juwan Morgan hit shots at the end of games, and IU makes the Final Four. That's the best case. As far as worst case goes, that's the best case. The worst case, as far as that goes, is the injuries continue to take their toll. Some people might say IU's been lucky in these close games. For all we know, Penn State shot, what was it, like 1 for 100 from the free throw line?
Yeah.
And the Big Ten is a brutal conference. There is still a path for this team to miss the NCAA tournament. Who knows? I mean, that would be the worst case. That would be the worst case scenario. How do you see IU?
What do I say about IU?
Yeah.
I was gonna say a run to the Final Four, definitely best case scenario. Like we get the guys, we get Jerome, we get Race back within the next couple weeks, and they move their way into the rotation. And Romeo gets better from 3-point range, and Devontae Green gets back to the Devontae Green that we saw at the end of last year. And Zach McRoberts comes back to the Zach McRoberts we had at the beginning of the year, and Evan Fitzner gets more comfortable, and we get a lucky draw in the NCAA tournament because it's all about the lucky draw, honestly. It's all about getting luck in Selection Sunday. We get a nice draw. We're like a 3 seed or a 2 seed. We get a good draw. We make our way up, we get one upset, and we're in the Elite Eight or Final Four. That's the best case scenario. I don't think we're going to get a national championship this year. That might be next year, but who knows? But Final Four would be magical this year for IU and for Romeo to send him off. Worst case scenario is Romeo gets injured, declares for the draft early. Juwan gets injured, declares for the draft early, and we don't win a game the rest of the year. So, there's two spectrums there. But
yeah,
seriously, the worst case scenario is things fall apart, people get injured, we get 10th or 9th or 10th in the conference because the Big Ten's really good this year.
It's brutal.
Right now, they're projecting 10 teams to get into the tournament. So we're like a bubble team. So there's a chance we get into the tournament chance for that. That's the worst case scenario for this team this year. I'll take the Purdue part of it.
Okay, yeah, I'll let you take care of that.
All right, so for the Purdue part of the question, is that they find somebody other than Carson Edwards to score and like at a normal pace. So what I mean is that Evan Boudreau finally comes through and he becomes the scoring threat that he was at Dartmouth. And he comes off and is that second option to Carson. And if they can find a second option to Carson, it's going to open up for Klein at the 3-point line, and things are going to get a lot easier on Harms down low. And that Purdue becomes a Sweet 16 team, a possible Sweet 16 team, because they have the best player in the country, Carson Edwards. Worst case scenario is that they don't find a second option for Carson, and that somehow Carson gets the Purdue curse and gets injured. And they could. There's a chance that this Purdue team would have trouble winning 4 or 5 games in the conference without Carson Edwards. That is how much Carson Edwards means to this team. So, worst case scenario is like a 12th or 13th place finish in the Big Ten. The best case scenario is a top 4 or 5, no, not top 4, but top 5 or 6 finish in the Big Ten and a possible Sweet 16 team. Like, this team is very good and they're fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm actually going to bump up their ceiling. I agree with you. I think their floor is a lot lower than Indiana's if Carson Edwards struggles or if he tries to protect himself for the NBA. I think their ceiling is Final Four high, though. Maybe I'm overrating Carson Edwards. I don't think I am. I think he's a lethal scorer. And in the NCAA tournament, if you have that kind of player, he can take you on a run. I mean, who knows? I don't know how. I don't know. Purdue's not playing their best right now, but Carson Edwards is capable, if they make the tournament, of beating anyone. I mean, that guy can hit a 3 from anywhere on the court. So I think their ceiling is high, is Final Four high, especially if a guy like Nojel Eastern or Matt Harms or Aaron Wheeler or whoever comes up and plays that second and third role on that team.
Absolutely. All right. We got one last question, and I'll just take it because we're pretty late tonight.
Go for it.
But so your thoughts on Archie settling in a 9-man rotation with Fitz, probably being the 9th man, depending on the team matchups. The starting lineup has been established with Zach, Deron Davis, Devontae Green, and Evan Fitzner seeing time from the bench. So first off, Noah put in the notes that Noah wants to mention that injuries have laid out this lineup for the most part so far. So yeah, I want to echo that statement. So for the most part, this 9-man lineup that we're talking about here, this wonderful person asked on Twitter. I think it was Joel asked on Twitter. The 9-man lineup, I think, has a lot to do with injuries. I think if Jerome Hunter is not injured and Grace Thompson's not injured, we're looking at an 11-man rotation. Because I can look at this list and tell you, I don't think Al Durham is not going to get into rotation if those two come back. I don't think we're going to leave McRoberts off. I don't think we're going to leave Devontae Green off, especially because he's a very good rotational guard at this point. We're not going to leave Deron Davis off, especially what he's done in his contribution so far this year. And Evan Fitzner as a rotation piece, as you said, we're not going to leave out. And then Race Thompson's supposed to be able to shoot the 3 and spread the floor and play down low. So that's a guy that you got to expect to be in the rotation. And then, Nithin, as you mentioned before, Jerome Hunter's a higher rated recruit than Rob Finney was coming out of high school. So who knows what he could bring to the team. We know he's a good shooter. He already won a gold jersey in practice this year before he had to get injury. He's one of the top 3 players so far this year because of the 3 players that we know that have gotten the golden jersey, it's been Romeo Langford, Juwan Morgan, and Jerome Hunter, who hasn't played yet. So I think in all, that yes, injuries is the reason why this is 9-man rotation. But if we're talking about no injuries, this is going to be 11-man rotation. And it's fine that he's settled on this because I don't see any contribution coming from Jake Forrester or Clifton Moore that are going to be able to surpass the contributions that Fitzner and Deron Davis has done. And then I don't see any contributions coming from Demezy Anderson that's going to unseat Zach McRoberts or Al Durham. So I think this is going to be the 9-man rotation that we see for a little bit now until Race Thompson comes back. And then I think we'll see more of a 10-man rotation. What about you, Nithin?
Yeah, I know. I actually echo everything that you said. I agree with it all. And look, if those guys are unable to come back from injury, then this is kind of who you got, and you're gonna ride your horses, Romeo and Juwan Morgan, to the finish line.
Absolutely. So that about wraps it up for our 66th show, the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. Noah will be back this Friday for another edition of the Hoosier Sound Off. Make sure to stay tuned through updates on Twitter at the Hoosier Sound. Follow us, please. Subscribe to us on YouTube or however you listen to podcasts, whether that's Spotify, Apple, whatnot. And visit our website, thehoosiersound.com, to find information at one place. Also, visit our partner, indianahq.com. They're writing some great stuff over there, and they're going to write a Butler preview, I'm sure, here in the next few days. So look out for that. As always, send us your questions as the audience, and be sure to comment or chat or send us a message at admin@indianahq.com on what questions you have, and we'll answer them on the next episode. Or just tweet at us. It's fine. We like interaction on Twitter. We do. We're lonely. Lastly, if you enjoy our show, leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links. I mean, it really helps us a lot. And helps us grow our community in the podcast and reach more passionate IU fans. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we'll see you next time. Peace.